Hello and welcome to Scrapping on the Fly. My name is Kristen and I'm here with Mix It Up Monday, which is a mixed media hop. And I'm adding to that Baby Got Scraps because I've got plenty of scraps to use, and New Year Old Stash, which is my January series, trying to use up my old stash that I have. So I have this sketch by Lottie Loves Paper that Anna with Peacecraft Love gave us. Love this sketch. Perfect for using up scraps. And I do have this piece of scrap paper that came from a paper pad, and it's bleachers. And I have this picture of my daughter and the track team sitting on bleachers. Thought it was perfect. So I'm going to use the pretty big portion of that paper and as much of that little scrap over there. And then I have this glitter glaze by Brutus Monroe, and then Ignore the Delusions shimmer sprays because I don't use them, and then this Pine Needles by Tim Old Stress Oxide. And then I have these scraps or little bits and pieces of stickers that were in like a sticker book. Some of that stuff is as old as 2006 probably, maybe even a little earlier. So if I can get some of that used, that'd be great. This is a Flare Hut stencil that Lisa Sikorsky created, and I thought that I would use this as part of my mixed media. So I'm going to use one of these little circles with the little lines through it to add some pizzazz to my layout. And so I'm excited about trying that out, and hopefully I can get some of that glitter glaze down. So I have all of my papers and scraps, my stencil, my mixed media, my embellishments, and my picture, and this awesome sketch. So let's see how this goes. So first things first, I get out my stencil. And like I said, I decided I wanted to use that circular one. And I wanted to make sure this color, even though I have a little sticker on the top that shows me the color, I just wanted to see it next to some of the papers I'm using. So I just did a little smear on that paper. So right now what I'm doing is covering the stencils that I don't want to use, because I can tell you I am not accurate or, really careful when I stencil. And so I cover the top and bottom circles so that I don't risk getting anything through those. Now, I wouldn't have minded if it went through the other one, but there's a bigger space between them and I can be a little bit more control here. And I love how that looks. Isn't that cool? I almost think I should have done more than I do, but I really do love the way that this layout turns out, so I'm perfectly happy with that. So I put that through, like I said, that's Pine Needles, and then I clean off the stencil, use the same one, but flip it upside down. You can kind of see it's a little fatter on one end of the circle than the other. So I turn it around to where the fat side is the opposite as what I've been laying down. It's not a huge, obvious thing, but it was something I thought would add a little bit. And I got to be really careful with the paste or with the glaze, because I don't want to lay my stencil down in what I've already done, because it'll mess it up. So the way this glitter glaze is, excuse me, is the thicker you put it on, the more, there is on there, obviously. And so I didn't want it to be too in your face, but I did love having that on there, and so I do really love the way it turns out. And I do cover some of that up with the strips, but there is enough poking out for you to be able to see it. So the school colors are golden, green, and black, and so that's why I figured I would go with the scraps that I have. Now I have 8.5 by 11 drawers. They're probably more like 10 by 12 or something like that. They're just those paper drawers that you can get at like Michael's and stuff, and I have one for each color, or like group of colors, and that's where I keep all my scraps that are predominantly like the scraps you see here with like the lightning bolts. Those are damask glove, I think, papers that were just scraps left over. I don't have anything else left from that collection, so if it's predominantly that color, I will put them in the drawer with like the yellow scraps or the green scraps or whatever. So that's where I dug all of these out of. So I just trimmed them all to 3/4, and there's 11 strips in the sketch, so I thought I'd go with 11, but I end up adding one. And I did decide to be crazy and distress all the way around my strips. And I say that's crazy only because there's so many strips, but I love the way that it looks. It gives it a little extra texture, even though I know I already have texture with my paste and everything. So now I'm going to try and lay this down very carefully so I don't smear, because I am laying it down on wet glitter glaze, and it's Sandy's fault because that's who I started watching YouTube, and she always works on wet ink and stuff. No, I am also impatient. It's why I like her so much. She and I are a lot alike. So anyway, I didn't make you watch me do that whole thing, but I am making you watch me text my friend Tara while I am working. I'm holding down the last piece of paper because it's a little thicker, and I love the way this looks. Of course, I cut a couple of them to make them a little longer, and I realized that I want it to be a little longer, so I add one more to make it more centered. And plus it started with the black and ends with the green, and I think that is a little bit more in my wheelhouse for my OCD. So, and those are all from scraps that you know, and like I said, you can still see quite a bit of the ink, mostly the green, but there are little hints of that black glitter glaze peeking out. So I matted my picture on black solid matte stack paper, and then I matted it on the bleachers, and you can see the bleachers coming out. If you didn't know that's what they were, you might not notice, but I don't care. I mean, I didn't want to leave it big because then that would have taken up and covered all that really pretty paper. And so I went ahead and trimmed it down to where you could still, like I said, see what it was, but it wasn't a huge border. I originally cut it at 6.5 by 4.5 and trimmed it down probably closer to 6 1/3 by 4 1/3. And then I decided to pop it up on fun foam. So I took this big piece of fun foam and put it down, and then I'm going to attach that with Nuvo Deluxe adhesive. I did distress the edges of my picture and then inked it with the pine needle so it would stand out in certain places, like where that little corner comes over on the white. And then I decided I needed a little bit more mixed media, and I got out this Bow Bunny collection, and I pulled that star out and inked it up with the pine needles. And I'm going to start putting some stars around. In this sketch, there are cut stars, what looks like cut stars. I'm really trying to use Old Stash, and I'm trying to remember to use stamps this year. I bought some stamps and a ton of stamp pads in the year 2022, and I really do want to start using them. I even bought a stamp positioner, so I really want to use them. I want to learn, teach myself. So after I got some of the pine needles down, I decided I wanted to add a little yellow, and I have like 3 stamp pads that are yellow, and I went looking for my wild honey, but I don't have that in a stamp pad, but I did have fossilized amber, and it is a practically perfect match, and I love the way that turned out. So I pulled everything off of those sticker sheets that I shared in the beginning that I wanted to use, like those little cleats and the stars from that Miss Elizabeth, and this number 1 and that star down at the very bottom says Superstar or something on it. Those are from like, I don't know, 2000 and something. Like, they're old. Like, I've had them a long time, and they were actually quite sticky. I was pretty impressed. That Be Bold came from a thicker set. I think it's a Vicky Booten thicker set. I was looking for a good title that would fit in that small space because I did use a 4x6 picture. I'm not thrilled. At least at first I wasn't thrilled where the word B is on top of that black, but it really kind of makes the word B stand out even more because it's not only on the black, but then it's on that black paper. So I'm okay with that. And I felt like it was a good title for this layout. Of course, like I usually do, I was like winging it as I put this together. So I had not come up with a title before I started. So that Miss Elizabeth's is like a sports thing, obviously, and it has like a bunch of numbers on there for you to put on like a scoreboard. And so I just pulled the 1 and 7 off because this was 2017. I am going to stamp the date down there in the bottom, but I just thought I would put that on there. And use up some stickers. So I decided to do a full vertical, or I mean a full diagonal design here, since I went all the way down with that superstar yellow star down there. And I had put a small little star here on top of that trophy, and I pulled that off to put it up at the top because I'm going to do 2 big stars up there. So I moved that one up to the top and put a bigger one on top of the trophy. There's where I stamped the date with my Heidi Swap date stamp. And sometimes when it doesn't come out, I'll either stamp a bunch, which is something I've learned from some of the fabulous people I watch scrap. But this time I just took my pen and my, I know it's a scrapbooking safe pen. I think it's a zig. And just kind of finished out the 7 and the 1 that were not completed. And then in the sketch, there's some journaling below the title. So I thought I'd pull some of my Tim Holtz word phrases, which I haven't been using as much as I used to. And I started pulling them all out in white and then decided I would alternate, and I picked 3 white and 2 black ones. And they say things like fly, use your wings to fly, or be bold, be brave. I don't remember now. And I just did this like 5 minutes ago, guys. And then I covered it up and pulled out my black, I can't remember what it's called, but it's the black shimmer spray by Diane Reevely. So there it is. I am so excited for how this turned out. I love Mix It Up Monday because we get the sketch to kind of go by, but we can experiment and add. I know you could do that any day of the week, but this just gives me a little extra encouragement to try new things. So stamping and glitter glaze, things that I really don't use all the time because paste and glaze through stenciling can get messy. However, this glitter glaze came off super clean from my Flare Hut stencil, so that made me very happy. So anywho, I hope you all will go down below and check out all the other people playing around with Mix It Up Monday. And I hope you'll come back and see me again really soon. I'll be doing Baby Got Scraps for the majority of January, as well as my New Year Old stash. So I hope you all will come back and see me again real soon. Have a great day and happy scrapping.